of all to be so born, why me? Why me? And in her simple peasant wisdom, she said to me that when it was time for another crippled boy to be born in the world, the Lord and his counselors held a meeting to decide where he should be sent. And the Lord said, I think that the Viscardis would be a good family for a crippled boy. What a wonderful thing that's been for me to hold on to all my life, to remember.
This is a story about the triumph of the human spirit. The story of a man, a dreamer, who lived two lives. A man predestined to change the world. This is a story of courage, dignity, and human rights. Faced with what seemed as insurmountable obstacles, he beat the odds.
I'd like to hope that the lessons of my life might ease the heart of one mother who holds a disabled child to her breast and thinks, what will become of my son or my daughter? And out of the lessons of this life comes hope for that child.
Standing on his artificial limbs, he is a giant among the great Americans of our time. This is his legacy.
It's a thing that happens to you when a child really loves you for a long, long time.
Imagine the world of the disabled at the turn of the century. A world lacking modern conveniences, assistive devices, sophisticated technology, rehabilitation, and access for the handicapped. It was a world where the word handicapped evoked fear and shame, where the handicapped were hidden in back rooms, abandoned, rarely seen in public, objects of pity and ridicule. It was a world totally unprepared for and unwilling to accept the handicapped. This was the backdrop of the stage onto which newborn Henry Viscardi Jr. was handed into his mother's arms.
My mother, her name was Anna. And I still sometimes, when I'm at a quiet moment during the night, hear her singing to me the songs, after the ball was over, after the brave had gone.
On May 10th, 1912, Henry Viscardi was born in New York City, the only son of poor Italian immigrants.
I remember my mother telling me that when I was born in Sloan's maternity hospital, they kept me wrapped up in clothing and blankets when they brought me to be nursed. And finally, she wondered why. And after she persisted, then they told her how I'd been born with twisted little stumps for lower limbs. And those were the days when one of the doctors thought, well, we'll cut out a board and strap these limbs, because they reverted to the congenital position. And they straightened them out and strapped them to a board, and she used to tell me how painful it was and that I cried a lot.
Young Henry spent the first 7 years of his life as a charity patient in a hospital where he lived on a ward with 40 other children.
That's the building. That's it. The Hospital for Deformities and Joint Diseases. What a name. I didn't really know who my mother was. She was a nice lady who came on Sunday. I thought the volunteer was my mother. She was with me every day, and I came to love her.
At the age of 8, Hank left the cloistered walls of the hospital to live with his family in a cold water flat on the Upper West Side of New York City. The streets of New York were a strange new world where Viscardi navigated on awkward orthopedic boots. Here he became an object of pity and ridicule, growing up to the childhood taunts of Ape Man.
I never realized that I had a brother with a disability, because my mother's treatment of him was even very normal. It was never made an issue of. he was treated the same as everybody else.
He was mainstreamed. He went to a normal public school, which was just a half block from our house. Did very well in school. In fact, he won an extemporaneous speaking contest when he was in grammar school. And I guess he had the mark of greatness on him even then.
The inner strength he had came completely from my mother. Completely. She was, as I say, she never treated him like he was somebody with a disability.
He was always so much admired because he didn't know the meaning of I can't. He did everything. He played basketball in the schoolyard, and he went all over. He played with the boys, and it was just as though he never had a handicap.
At 3 feet 8 inches tall, Hank graduated from Newtown High in Elmhurst, Queens in 1930, with dreams of becoming a lawyer. He went on to study at Fordham University in the Bronx, but Viscardi never got a chance to finish. Family finances forced him to leave Fordham in his senior year.
I remember that these were happy years for me at Fordham. I loved it there. Years ago, a great doctor made the difference in my life. When he stood me up tall and straight for the first time on these artificial limbs I now wear. I could not pay his bill. But he told me that his bill would be paid if I would make the difference for one other individual, one other disabled individual.
From birth, Hank's mother, a woman of great faith, never gave up. She dedicated her son to St. Anthony of Padua. She hoped, she prayed, and she wept that one day her son would walk like other little boys. In 1938, Viscardi was employed at the Homeowners Loan Corporation and attending St. John's Law School at night. Experiencing unbearable pain, his stumps weakening, Hank faced the prospect of life in a wheelchair. By a strange twist of fate, longtime family physician Dr. Robert Janover asked Hank to take a risk. But once again, he had to forego school and postpone his career. At the age of 27, his mother's undying prayers were answered. Hank Viscardi walked for the first time on artificial limbs in the full stature of a man. He stood 5'8".
I can't imagine what it was he saw, what it was that he believed in. But it didn't take him long to make up his mind that this could be done. And then, as a busy surgeon, he found the time to find a man who could build these limbs, even though the first people he went to said it was impossible to do.
He took a special liking to Hank, and Dr. Janover went out of his way to give Hank all the help he could. He was the one who suggested the limbs, brought him to the man who made his limbs.
This is the year 1938, when the prosthetic art was primitive. It was non-existent, really. Yet he found an old Austrian who built me a pair of limbs, and it changed my life.
When he walked in, it was the most wonderful surprise we had ever gotten. We just couldn't believe it. It was heart-wrenching. We were so happy for him and so thrilled that he was able to do this. And he was beaming. His face was just lit up. He was so thrilled. My mother, of course, broke down in tears, as we all did.
You remember the boy who was, and now you know the man he became. Last night, I was dancing. Can you believe that? And it was not myself who carried the rhythm, but you too. And so it will be in everything I do from now on. I can never walk alone in this joy again. For every step I take is partially yours. Each year on Ash Wednesday, I wrote a similar letter. So he's a man who had a great influence on my life, who changed my life, who made it a different life, who gave me the priceless opportunity to live 2 lives. I have long since promised him, and I pledge to you, my friends, that so long as there shall be just one such individual who prefers the challenges of life to the guaranteed existence, disabled or not, the thrill of fulfillment to the stale calm of some subsidized utopia, I will devote all of my energies to that need.
When World War II broke out, Hank wanted to serve his country, but was rejected by all the armed forces because of his disability. He fought his way into the Red Cross, where he became a field officer at Walter Reed Hospital in Washington, the country's first amputation center.
Having been an object of pity and curiosity all those years, I could easily sense what these wonderful young men were going to face coming back without arms, without legs, with concurrent burns and even blindness. And I felt that I had something to offer in helping them make the transition to this new life, seeing them come back maimed and disfigured and disabled. Probably more than anything else was setting the ideas that changed my life and that guided my future years. The emotional trauma of sharing the lives of these severely disabled young men was such that I went through a period of saying, I've had it. Now, I no longer want to be connected with this. I want to seek out the challenges of life as a man who's not disabled.
In 1945, Viscardi worked for Mutual Broadcasting System in New York, traveling the country as the assistant director for special events. Here, Hank met Lucille Durack, a cartographer.
I wondered often whether anyone would love me, whether I'd be able to be the same and to be married and have a family and have children. It was a constant concern.
He would come into our department quite frequently and invited both of us and our boss for a day out on his houseboat in Manhasset.
These people were invited not only to come out to the houseboat where we would prepare dinner, but to go sailing, since I'm a sailor.
And he was very interesting, very gentle, treated me very nicely. And I just found him a bit fascinating. It was not overwhelming. It grew gradually, I think, as far as I was concerned. But it was a very comfortable feeling to be with him.
I knew I loved her very much, and truthfully, I love her more today than the first day I ever met her. And I knew that it would be a wonderful thing if she could feel that she'd found her destiny in me, because certainly I was convinced I'd found it in her.
He may or may not remember, but it was exactly 3 months after we had met that he asked me to marry him.
I was apprehensive, to put it mildly, that maybe it wasn't to be. That maybe being born without limbs and severely disabled was a bigger impediment in the eyes of a woman than I thought it might be. But Lucille never gave me any reason to have those doubts.
In 1946, Lucille and Hank were married and moved into their home in Kings Point, New York. It was owned by Dr. Yanover, still a primary figure in Viscardi's life.
And of course, when we were married, there were no houses. I was living on a houseboat. Lucille had never lived on a houseboat. And yet we found this 3-car garage on his property, which he was willing to let us convert into a cottage. We found a great deal of happiness, and there we began our married life.
4 decades later, considerably remodeled, it's still their home. Nina, the first of their daughters, arrived in 1947. Shortly after came Donna, Lydia, and Lucienne. With a new family and a home, Hank grew further away from the disabled cause and moved on to a lucrative career as a businessman. He became the personnel director of Burlington Mills, a large textile company, in 1947. Dr. Howard Rusk, a world-renowned figure in rehabilitation, whom Hank met at Walter Reed Hospital, walked back into Hank's life in 1949 and asked him to head up a unique enterprise called JOB, Just One Break. This was to be a job placement agency for the disabled, located in Bellevue Hospital in New York City.
I came to realize that there were millions of people who knew disability through accident, disease, congenital origin, and that there is where my destiny lay, in helping them to find a life that would be self-sufficient.
Viscardi accepted this challenge and became the executive director.
And JOB was formed because we had to convince people in commerce and industry that these people could work, could do a day's work for a day's pay, could support themselves, and would be better workers no matter how they looked and how disabled occupationally they seemed to be.
JOB paved the way. It was a success. He placed thousands of productive disabled individuals back into the workforce. But it wasn't enough, and not fast enough, for Hank Viscardi.
If I could have a living model that people from American industry and throughout the world could walk through, could see that it did work, that would help tremendously to break down the barriers of ignorance and prejudice that were preventing us from getting people accepted into employment.
In 1952, he stepped down from his directorship at JOB. On a shoestring and a dream, Hank opened Abilities Incorporated, a not-for-profit workplace in a vacant garage in West Hempstead, New York. He hired only disabled workers at prevailing wages.
And among those first 5 workers, I recall we had but 1 usable leg and but I think 5 usable arms. They were amputees. And with that beginning, we built a great little organization.
I remember coming to work in this little garage, like you said. It was a tiny little thing. And Hank had a little office in the corner. And we got to talking. And he was telling me about elaborate dreams, about a big place and all that. My first impression, I thought this guy was crazy. I said, nobody can do that from this. But he had wonderful vision.
And in came this little man, without arms, without legs, but with a wonderful spirit, a great sense of humor.
It changed my life. It was great. I was going with a very nice girl at the time, and I couldn't see a future because I wasn't working, and then I got the job. And then we started making plans for the future. We got married, had 3 children.
There's a big difference between occupational disability and physical disability. And the fascinating thing about this is both can be changed. You can change the workplace. You can build jigs and tools and devices. You can change the individual through training, through surgery, through medication. Physical disability will always be there, but so long as the individual has the capacity to meet the demands of the job to be done, that individual will never be occupationally disabled for that job.
A success. Within 5 years, Abilities moved from the original garage to a 16-acre site in Albertson, New York. The plant expanded at a rapid pace, at one point employing over 400 disabled workers. As Abilities continued to grow, in 1955, on the same site, Viscardi founded the Human Resources Center, an umbrella organization where the disabled could train, work, be rehabilitated, and educated. Here, the experience could be recorded and shared with others. Visitors came from around the world to observe and learn. His concept has been copied in over 60 countries to date.
Abilities for me gave me the stability, to keep going on, knowing that, there's going to be a paycheck every week, and that I felt I was well liked and I was really doing a job. I was earning my money. We didn't feel like freaks in a job. We were actually people to him. And I think he loved us. Well, I know I loved him. From the time I met him, it was a mutual thing.
In 1991, the Human Resources Center evolved into the National Center for Disability Services. This center remains on the cutting edge, leading the nation in education, training, and rehabilitation for over 2,500 people with disability each year.
Dr. Viscardi, it's a very great responsibility, and I know that under your leadership and those that'll be working with you, it'll be a very successful conference.
Thank you. I think
Recognized across the country as a pioneer in rehabilitation and employment, Viscardi was appointed by President Nixon, then reappointed by Ford and Carter as chairman of the White House Conference on Handicapped Individuals. Its goals were to study, identify, and raise public awareness about the problems and potentials concerning handicapped individuals nationally.
He's a national figure in the area of vocational rehabilitation. He's an inspiration to every disabled person. He, in the world, has become Mr. Handicapped American. He has represented the President of the United States in so many different countries that you can't count them. He is known throughout the world for the things he's done, for the concepts that he's developed, and for the people that he's helped. Hank will be remembered for having introduced the disabled people of America to the world of work and helped to prepare the way for them.
The White House Conference set the stage and was a blueprint of recommendations and legislation that became the landmark Americans with Disabilities Act, signed in 1990. This act brings the disabled into the civil rights movement.
Well, I get a great warm feeling about the school today. I feel it's fulfilled all of my hopes and dreams. There's not a day goes by that I can't come into the school and see myself as I was, as a crippled boy, without limbs, getting around just on the stumps, desiring to love and be loved, hoping I could fulfill a real destiny in the world.
In the 60s, many states did not allow disabled children to go to school. While continuing to help disabled adults, Viscardi didn't forget those who were hidden from the world.
We found any number of these children abandoned and forgotten, who weren't even on homebound education, whose families had totally given up. And those who were on homebound education weren't getting an appropriate education at all.
Somewhere around 7th grade, the school district stopped sending teachers, saying that they had no more volunteers, and due to my disability, they had no legal obligation to continue my education. And so at that point, my mother and father felt that they would find a place for me to go to school, and the Human Resources School had just begun.
From the closets to the classroom came his greatest dream, a school for severely disabled children. It began with a summer camp. By a special legislative act, the Human Resources School, located in Abilities, was chartered in 1962 by the state of New York as a pilot demonstration. It was the first school of its kind serving orthopedically handicapped children on homebound education.
So the Human Resources School pioneered the following. Driver education. We were the first school in New York State, if not in the country, to provide driver education for high school students. We were the first school in New York State, if not in the country, to provide an accredited science program, biology, chemistry, so on.
Paul Hearn has many notable distinctions, among them the president of the Dole Foundation in Washington. He was class president and valedictorian of the first graduating class of the Human Resources School in 1967.
Certainly had I stayed home instead of going to Human Resources and coped with, oh, I don't know, a year of having an education and a year of not having an education. By the time I'd reached my mid-20s, even though I might have intellectually been college material, I never would have gone. I certainly wouldn't have gone to law school. I probably wouldn't have met my wife. I probably wouldn't have had the necessary social relationships and social experience to allow me to be in the real world.
Bernadette and Joe Canassa enrolled their son Glenn in the Human Resources School when he was 3 years old. In those days, the school was in its infancy.
I think Dr. Viscardi is a man, like they say, that God does everything for a reason. There's a reason for everything he does. And I truly believe with all my heart and soul that's why God sent us Dr. Viscardi.
It was a place for our kids, not just mine, but for our kids, all our handicapped kids, to grow up, get an education, and become part of society. It just wasn't a school. It was a place that we all loved to be. We called it the house that love built. That's what we used to call it.
Clinton Brown III is a vivacious, friendly, 11-year-old with a great sense of humor. He is an A student at the Henry Viscardi School.
Because he was born without legs, and he had to go to a school, a public school, where, like, he was made fun of and everything. So he didn't want the other kids, like, in the future, to be laughed at. So he decided, I'll make a school so that everything will turn out all right, and these kids will have a better life and education.
If Hank Viscardi wasn't born, I don't know where all those kids would be. I don't know where Clinton would be right now. It's a blessing. I thank God for having Dr. Viscardi in my life. I really do. He's an amazing man, and he's changed every child's life that goes to that school.
If he wasn't such a nice man and just didn't even care, then I wouldn't be here, you know? So he really helps us out a lot.
Yeah, he loves you guys.
I know.
Hank is frequently invited to speak to the students of the Henry Viscardi School. Author of 8 books, he addresses the 11th grade English class to discuss his book, The School. He begins with the community opposition to build it.
Basically, what they were fighting was the aversion that divides the world into crippled and non-crippled people. They were fighting, without knowing it, that they couldn't look on you and I without feelings of revulsion. Now, I admit that's pretty strong, but finally 1 or 2 of them really admitted it. They didn't want their so-called normal children to be looking across the backyard and seeing people like you and me. And that bothered me more than anything else.
So what was I, 16? And I remember testifying. And I remember the anger, the hatred, and the fear that I experienced by coping with the neighbors at that time. And it was a real struggle.
We were threatened. They called us up one night and told us that if we went on any further, continued to be involved with the court battles and so on, that they were going to kidnap Glenn, and we'd never see him again.
The hostile feelings were the most, those I remember more than the specific acts. Do you know what I mean? That feeling of being threatened for being something that you are, I think was pretty terrible.
It was an emotional, explosive fight to the state Supreme Court and finally the appellate court before he won the right to build.
Well, I was awfully angry with that local board, I'll tell you that. And I guess at times I wasn't very nice to them. But the idea that kept me going was that they were wrong, that this school wouldn't be a detriment to the community. And the idea that kept me going really was the things I remembered from my own life as a crippled boy. I was excused from gym. I was excused from science because I couldn't climb up on the high stools to look into the microscopes and into the reagents. And I wanted to make a different life for people who knew disability, understanding from my own experience how much books meant to me, how much reading meant to me, how much it meant to me to be a learned man facing the challenges of life. And I think what kept me going more than anything else was you. You. When I see you in this school each day, I'm reinforced. I could climb the highest mountain or tear apart a gorilla because I see you here in this school. And I think more than anything else, it stands as an ideal for all the world to see, that we can fulfill our destiny as productive, intelligent people. Each one of you and I may not build another school, but we go forth as disciples to change minds and hearts and fill them with understanding of how disabled people can be normal, wonderful people that they really are, and how they should be treated the same and not different from the rest of the world. That's building more than a physical structure. I never promise you that it would be easy, but I assure you it's going to be worthwhile. So in the dark days, hang in there. And remember that for you and me, to hope is a duty, not a luxury. To hope is to change dreams into reality. I'm going to give the keynote address at Career Day at Cathedral High School, which I've been asked to do by the Cardinal. And I'm going to say to those young ladies, you know, you mustn't be upset that your keynote speaker is standing here on artificial limbs. That's really not a handicap, it's only an inconvenience. Has it occurred to you that here it is almost Easter, and I haven't changed my socks since Christmas?
The fulfillment of a lifetime of hopes and dreams. On September 21st, 1989, the Henry Viscardi School was dedicated. Ironically, on one of the most important days of his life, Henry Viscardi was speechless. His wife, Lucille, stood in.
Hank had had minor throat surgery, realized that he was not going to be able to speak, and suggested that I read his remarks. I'd never in my life done any such thing, but I just decided it had to be done.
This building will not stand forever, but the ideals which it represents will stand forever. To challenge the belief in permanent helplessness and to fulfill the dreams and hopes of children yet unborn. We thank you for making this great dream a possibility and for the high honor you pay me. With all our hearts, Lucille and I thank you. May God love you, one and all.
Success is failure turned inside out, the silver tint of the clouds of doubt. And you never can tell how close you are. It may be near when it seems afar. So stick to the fight when you're hardest hit. It's when things seem worse that you must not quit. Thank you.
The commencement exercises at the Henry Viscardi School is a tearful, joyous occasion, one of rebirth and new beginnings. Over 75% of Henry Viscardi School graduates go on to higher education, well above the national average.
That's the destiny of this school, to develop curriculum, to teach teachers, to spread this experience around so that in the mainstream of disabled children throughout the country, they can profit by what we have developed here and what we've learned in dealing with this over so many years.
He also used to line us up on the garage door when we were little, and he had made us stilts because he said, I walk on artificial legs, you have to learn to use stilts. And he would give us a quarter for each step that we took.
I didn't see that there was anything different about him. I never thought there was anything that he couldn't do. My dad took us fishing, we caught eels, and, you know, we're grossed out. and he took us sailing. And he loved us and cared about us.
You know, we used to play hide and go seek, and it was always fun if friends discovered his legs underneath the bed. You know, we'd like when that would happen. And he didn't have the wheelchair when we were real little, so when the wheelchair came, that was great because it was like having a car practically in your house.
Well, we shared a love of books, and I think that that was probably our link and our common bond. And he always read to us.
Always, when they were old enough, had dinner together. That was a ritual that we never gave up. And he would bathe them, which I know was not terribly easy for him. He would read to them before they went to sleep, and sometimes he'd be asleep before them, falling practically over them. One of them once said to me, "Does he have to do that?"
I had the slightest concern when each baby was born as to whether there'd be a congenital deformity like mine. It's rather interesting. We have 9 grandchildren, and yet when each grandchild has been born, the fathers called me and said the baby's perfect.
And I went once to St. John's commencement exercises where Dad was the speaker for graduation. And all the bleachers were filled, all 4 sides were filled. And Dad finished his speech by giving the deaf sign for "I love you." And the entire room stood up and gave it back. I mean, it even makes me get like a little teary now, because then you really got to, you know, to feel that, geez, this man is, I mean, just such a powerful, powerful person, and has used that, you know, that gift that he had to, of his determination to really influence so many people's lives.
He doesn't sleep a lot. He never did. He would be up writing and reading in the middle of the night. And I think that he was a man with a vision, someone with very definite ideas about what he wanted to do and who he wanted to be.
You know, he was a very good and loving father when he was home, but his real passion was his work. He was just totally, you know, committed to it, and in a really good way.
Part of our life meant sacrifices. Starting abilities, when we did in 1952, meant changing our whole life, taking risks that it wouldn't succeed. Lucille was as willing to take the risks as I was.
Maybe unconsciously kept the home fires very quiet. I mean by that he was never confronted, well, this happened today and that happened today. Home was kind of a peaceful place to come back to. And when people say, well, how were you involved and how did you help? And I just felt that that was the only help I could give.
I think he's very much a doer in his career and for his family. And I think that he's passed on to me that sense of caring for your children, being there for them, being sure that they have what they need and they want for nothing.
It's likely my dad taught me that what you wanted, you could get. Don't give up. Because he didn't.
I guess to believe in myself, even if nobody else did. To follow your dreams, to always have those, and to not give up.
Maybe that's the secret ingredient in loving. To do for the person you love something special every minute, every day, every hour, every week, forever. And now, when you think of the great joy we have to share this love with 4 lovely children and 9 wonderful grandchildren, that makes it immeasurable in the return you get from living and loving.
I think that I respect so much what he has accomplished, what he stands for, and the kind of human being he is, that I think it makes a better person of me.
Some of the things we undertook were impossible, but I spent all my life, you know. You remember Alice in Wonderland, when Alice said to the Queen, I can't do that. That's impossible. You know, remember what the Queen said? The Queen said to her, impossible, my child, impossible? Why, when I was your age, I always did at least 6 impossible things before breakfast. And my experience is such that I do want to share with you, before I begin my talk, some interesting anecdotes about these young children. For example, I have a delightful story about a 4-year-old girl and a 3-year-old boy who appeared at a neighbor's house, and standing on tiptoe, the little girl rang the bell. And the lady of the house answered, and the little girl said, "This is my husband, and we've come to pay a social call." The woman was intrigued, invited the children in, and offered them tall glasses of lemonade and cookies, and they chatted for a while. And when they'd finished the lemonade, the lady of the house said, "Would you like some more lemonade?" But the little girl said, "No, thank you, we have to go now. My husband has wet his pants."
On May 10, 1992, the whole Henry Viscardi School gathered to celebrate Hank Viscardi's 80th birthday.
Hank, we love you. We look forward to the year 2012 when we're back here to celebrate number 100. And on behalf of everyone, I want to thank you very much for all you've done.
I cannot tell you how much I cherish the pleasure, the opportunity, the heritage which you give me just by your presence and what you mean to the world which you will face and which you will help make a better world than those of us who came before you. You are my priceless gift, for which I'm so grateful. And dear Lord, let me spend as much of what remains of my life serving our wonderful children, whom I dearly love. Amen. I'm now in the 80th year of my life. Oh, what a life it's been. Come with me for a brief stroll along the banks where I have spent my life, and allow me to share with you some thoughts on meaning in life and hope and courage.
Over the last 4 decades, pioneer Henry Viscardi Jr. has stood before audiences around the globe, from Japan to Australia, in meeting rooms, television studios, and banquet halls. On a one-man crusade, Viscardi has carried his universal message, one which he's devoted his whole life improving.
There's no difference between peoples. The man that I meet in Japan who has no legs is no different than I am. He has the same desire to love and be loved. But when I look at Paul and Alex and our wonderful people at the Human Resources Center, I think that they're extraordinary people seeking ordinary destinies, to be the same and not different from the rest of the world. To fail, to succeed, to dream, to build, and to face the world boldly and say, "This I have done." If we have the technical know-how to put a man on the moon, then we have the human capacity to cease dividing our world into able and disabled people, into the blessed and the damned, into sheep and goats.
If we could eliminate from the language or from our minds any thought of amputees or paraplegics or epileptics or mentally ill or cerebral palsy, then think of them as people.
And what they can do.
And what they can do, not what they cannot do. Their abilities and not their disabilities.
We have the perfect terms now. Man and woman, boy and girl, child. Remember, my dears, that loving means to love that which is unlovable, or it is no virtue at all. I am always deeply impressed by the bravery and commitment of those who serve disabled people.
Nothing's going to work because somebody wrote it down in a law. It's going to work because people believe in it.
I got nothing that I asked for, but everything I'd hoped for, almost despite myself. My unspoken prayers were answered. I am, among all men, most richly blessed. This is the story of the Velveteen Rabbit, or how
On a
toys
cold February
become
morning,
real. And
Hank
that's
visits Miss Rosalie's first grade class to share his favorite book, the Velveteen Rabbit.
Real isn't how you're made, said the skin horse. It's a thing that happens to you when a child really loves you for a long, long time. You become real. Generally, I love this line, generally by the time you're real, most of your hair has been loved off and you get very shabby. Well, I guess I become real by being so close to your wonderful children. And my fur's been rubbed off and my eyes kind of pop out. I feel loose in the joints and a little bald in the head where my hair's thinning because you've made me real by loving me. And I'm very pleased with that. Thank you, my dear. You want to see if my hair is real? Give it a tug. Whoops.
Today, at age 80, founder and president emeritus of the National Center for Disability Services, Hank Viscardi still answers the call. He's an important presence at the center and comes into his office several days a week, swims a half-mile each morning, and visits with the children and guests.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Sentence paragraph. We are grateful.
Hank corresponds to people around the world who seek his advice concerning the disabled.
Our children, whom we dearly love in the Henry Viscardi School, are just the same as you. They're not different. They have the same aspirations and the same love.
Always educating and inspiring, Hank meets with the fourth graders of the Bowling Green School who've come to the center to learn more about its founder.
Rory, did you have a question?
How long did it take you to get used to having artificial limbs?
Well, Rory, you never get used to artificial limbs. They hurt, they're painful. Have you ever seen an artificial limb? Would you like to? I think it'd be an educational experience. They come up all the way to here. The top part, as you can see, is made of leather. And the little stumps are hidden in here. You can touch it if you like. It's made of fiberglass. Feel it. You can touch it if you like, my dear. And that's me. They've made a big difference in my life. And for anyone who needs an artificial limb, it's not that hurtful, Rory. It hurts, but, you know, I'm sure your shoes hurt, Michael, times. And I would hope that by their exposure here, they go away with a great uplifting feeling of the kind of people we are. Plus, I think it's an enriching experience because, as you know, in going through our school, children laugh and sing, and in between classes, you're apt to get run down by a wheelchair in the corridors. And I don't read a speech, I give it from notes. But I really agonize over it, and I shouldn't. I've done it so often, and I've done it so well. But I really agonize over it. I want it to be so good. And I never finish, but I don't think of what I should have said and how I could have said it better. Are you a betting woman? I'll bet you a quarter. I've only got 15 minutes. That they'll laugh, they'll cry, and I'll get a standing ovation.
8 decades later, Viscardi is still being recognized for his outstanding contributions. On June 3rd, 1992, Hank received the Andrus Award from the American Association of Retired Persons.
You know, after this introduction, I can hardly wait to hear what I have to say. But I usually like to tell an audience that if you feel like laughing during my talk, don't hold back. I understand that it goes back down if you suppress laughter and makes your hips spread. How privileged, how rich my life has been to work with and for disabled children and adults. Oh, what lessons they teach me. As for me, it is my heritage to stand erect, proud and unafraid, to think and act for myself, enjoy the benefit of my creations, and to face the world boldly and say, this I have done. The tragedy in life does not lie in not reaching your goal. The tragedy lies in having no goal to reach. It's not a calamity to die with dreams unfulfilled, but it is a calamity not to dream. It's not a disgrace not to reach for the stars, but it is a disgrace to have no stars to reach for. Not failure, but low aim is the sin. To hope is a duty, not a luxury. To hope is not to dream, but to turn dreams into reality. Blessed are those who dream dreams and are ready and willing to pay the price to make them come true. Thank you for the privilege of being with you and for this great honor. Lucille and I thank you with all our hearts. We thank you, thank you, thank you, and may God love you one and all.
Henry Viscardi has advised numerous presidents on the disabled. He changed legislation, has written books, received honorary doctorates and awards, devoting his whole life to the cause. Thousands of severely disabled children and adults have looked toward this man for guidance and inspiration. He responds with all the resources within him.
It hurt a lot. Well, did you catch a fish? That's what's important.
He was put on this earth for building the school and leaving the legacy that he's leaving, helping every kid. I mean, look at the thousands of children that have gone through those doors already.
I certainly would remember him for what he's given me as a person. And I'm only one of thousands. And so for that, I think is probably the finest of accomplishments.
He's God's gift to the world. You say about him, you say this is a man born without legs that accomplished more than any of us could in a lifetime.
As I say, I think that somewhere along the line, Hank began to realize that God put him here for a purpose. And he was going to fulfill that purpose. He was going to do it, and he did.
Hank had a way of presenting himself, and I guess because he believed in himself. He gave a lot up to try this, and by the grace of God, he was successful, I think.
I mean, I look at my dad now, and I think that he is proud to be handicapped. I think he's proud of it. And he wants to spread that to every other handicapped person he could possibly get in touch with. That you know, it's not going to stop you from doing anything you possibly want to.
If there is a resurrection, and we have to believe there is, I wonder how I'll come out. Will I have artificial limbs? Will I have toes that can feel the warm sand of a summer beach, or the dew on the grass of a spring morning? And how will it be? What will it be like not to have artificial limbs?
High on a bluff, looking out to sea, 90 miles from their home in Kings Point on the North Fork of Long Island, is Hank and Lucille's retreat home.
This is a good place to think and to relax and to read and to listen to music and to hook rugs and restore antique furniture and feed the birds and watch them bathing at night as we have our dinner. It gives us plenty of time to think and relax and to be with one another and with the things we love to do. I can't say enough about how wonderful a woman she is, and how much I love her, what joy we get out of the things we share together. And she's not a sailor. I mean, that's remarkable. I could love anyone who didn't love sailing. I cannot imagine what my life would be without her.
On birthdays, Valentine's, he'll write me a little verse. Wrote me a beautiful poem for my birthday. If I should ever leave you, whom I love, to go along the silent way, grieve not, nor speak of me with tears, but laugh and talk of me as if I were beside you. And when you hear a song I used to sing, or see a bird I loved, let not the thought of me be sad, for I am loving you just as I always have. You were so good to me, so many, many things still wanted to say to you. Remember that I did not fear. It was just leaving you I could not bear to face. We cannot see beyond, but this I know. I love you so. 'Twas heaven there with you. Pretty nice, huh? So I guess that sums up a relationship.
I'd like to write another book. I have, but I'm not happy with it. I gotta rewrite it. I'd like to make another speech, and I will. I got one booked for the spring with an audience of about 4,000 people. I'd like to sail into a few more sunsets on the sloop, and I will. I'd like to go back to the challenge that Dr. Yanova left for me. Change the life of one other disabled individual, and my bill will be repaid. I'd like to change the life of one other disabled individual, just one, before it's ended. How precious. How precious.
Accept me and love me for who I am inside. Accept me and love me for who I am from within. Appearances are deceiving and misleading. It's our spirit that defines you and me. Believe in me, hope with me, and together we'll climb the highest mountain.
Hank Viscardi will be remembered as a man who inspired and changed the lives of countless disabled people and brought hope to those who loved them. He proved there are no disabled people, only people who have a right to dream, and if given the chance, even the most impossible dreams can come true.